In the heart of Kathmandu's ancient Durbar Square, a massive gilded chariot, intricately carved with the eyes of gods, is pulled through a surging sea of humanity. Atop this spectacular vehicle sits a small child, a girl of no more than 8 years old. She is draped in brilliant red and gold silks, her neck heavy with silver necklaces. Her face is a perfect painted mask of divine authority. A white base, eyes heavily lined with black kohl that extends dramatically to her temples, and on her forehead a fiery third eye. Her expression is unnervingly still, her gaze fixed, seeing everything and nothing. As the chariot passes the presidential palace, the leader of the nation of Nepal emerges, bows his head in deep reverence, and receives a tika, a mark of blessing, from her tiny, outstretched hand. This girl is not a princess. She is not the daughter of a politician. For the people of Nepal, she is a god. She is the royal Kumari, the living, breathing vessel of the mighty Hindu goddess Taleju. And her story is a complex, breathtaking, and often tragic tapestry of divinity and imprisonment. Part 1. The Valley of Gods and Kings. To understand the tradition of a living child goddess, one must first journey to her kingdom, the Kathmandu Valley. This is not just a valley, it is a sacred geography, a place so dense with temples, shrines, and stupas that it is often said there are more gods here than people, more temples than houses. For millennia, this fertile bowl in the lap of the Himalayas has been a crossroads of cultures and religions, most notably a unique and complex fusion of Hindu Tantrism and Vajrayana Buddhism. This is the homeland of the Newar people, the indigenous inhabitants of the valley, whose artistic and architectural genius has shaped the very soul of the city. The history of the Kumari is inextricably linked to the Malla dynasty, the kings who ruled the Kathmandu Valley from the 12th to the 18th century. The Malla kings were devout followers of Tantrism, a mystical and often esoteric branch of Hinduism and Buddhism that emphasizes the worship of divine energy, or Shakti, which is personified in female form. The most important deity for the Malla kings was Taleju Bhawani, a fierce, multi-armed, and powerful goddess, a form of Durga. She was their personal protector, their divine guide, and the ultimate source of their political legitimacy. Legend tells that the king would often play dice with the goddess Taleju herself, who would visit him in human form to offer her counsel. But one day, the king, in a moment of human weakness, made an inappropriate advance or looked upon her with lust. Enraged, the goddess prepubescent girl from the Shakya caste of the Newar Buddhist community. The king was to build her a palace, worship her as the living embodiment of Taleju, and receive her blessing annually to legitimize his rule. And thus the tradition of the royal Kumari was born. This story is a brilliant illustration of the valley's unique religious syncretism. The Kumari is a Hindu goddess, Taleju, who incarnates in the body of a Buddhist girl from the Shakya caste, the same caste as the historical Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama. She is therefore worshipped with equal fervor by both Hindus and Buddhists. She is not just a symbol of divine power, but a living bridge between the two great religions that define the spiritual landscape of Nepal. Part 2. The Search for a Goddess. The life of Kumari begins the moment the previous one's reign ends. When the incumbent royal Kumari has her first menstruation, or loses blood from an injury, she is considered to have lost her divine purity. The spirit of Taleju is believed to have instantly departed her body. While the now former goddess begins her difficult transition back to mortal life, a secret and urgent search begins for her successor. The selection process is overseen by a council of high-ranking Hindu and Buddhist priests, including the royal priest and the chief astrologer. The search is confined to the newer Shakya caste, a community of traditional goldsmiths and silversmiths. The candidates are young girls typically between the ages of 4 and 7. The criteria for selection are extraordinarily rigorous and specific, a checklist of divine attributes known as the Bhattis Lakshanas, or the 32 perfections of a goddess. This list is a poetic and almost impossible standard of physical perfection. A potential Kumari must have a body like a banyan tree and thighs like a deer. Her chest should be like that of a lion and her neck like a conch shell. Her eyelashes must be as long and graceful as a cow's. Her voice must be soft and clear as a duck's. She must have a full set of 22 teeth, a tongue that is small and moist, and her skin must be smooth and free of any blemishes, scars, or even birthmarks. Her hair and eyes must be a perfect, inky black. Beyond this physical checklist, her horoscope must be examined by the royal astrologers. It must be perfectly aligned with that of the current head of state, signifying a harmonious relationship between the divine and temporal powers of the nation. Once a short list of candidates who meet these stringent physical and astrological requirements is compiled, they must face the final, most crucial, and most terrifying series of tests, designed to prove that they possess the calm, fearless soul of a true goddess. The courtyard has been prepared for a horrifying spectacle. It is filled with the freshly severed, blood-soaked heads of 108 buffaloes and goats that have just been sacrificed to the goddess. The heads are illuminated only by the flickering, demonic light of candles. Men, wearing terrifying masks of demons and evil spirits, dance and shriek around the severed heads, creating a scene of absolute terror. The young girl, a child of no more than 5 or 6, is left in this courtyard. She must walk through it alone and show absolutely no fear. She cannot cry, she cannot scream, she cannot even flinch. Most children understandably fail this test. The girl who remains perfectly calm and serene throughout this ordeal is believed to be the one who truly possesses the divine spirit of Taliju. In another test, she is placed in a room filled with sacred masks and must identify the ones that belong to the previous Kumari, a test of innate, divine recognition. She must spend a night alone in the temple among the ritual objects, again without showing any fear. The girl who passes all of these tests, who meets all 32 perfections, and whose horoscope is perfect, is declared the new royal Kumari. From that moment on, her life as a mortal child is over. Part 3. Life in a Gilded Cage. The newly chosen Kumari is taken from her family and her home and installed in the Kumari Gar, an ornate, intricately carved wooden palace on Kathmandu's Durbar Square. This will be her home, her temple, and her prison until the day she reverts to being a mortal. Her life is now governed by a strict set of ancient and demanding rules. Her feet are now sacred and must never touch the unholy ground outside her palace. She is not allowed to walk. When she moves, she must be carried in an attendant's arms or in her golden palanquin. The only exception is within the pristine private courtyards of her own home. This rule is absolute, a constant physical reminder of her separation from the mortal world. Her body is a divine vessel. Her blood, in particular, is considered to hold her divine essence. Therefore, any cut or injury that draws blood can render her impure, causing the goddess to depart. She is carefully protected from any accident. Perhaps the most psychologically demanding rule is the suppression of all emotion. In public, the Kumari must remain a placid, emotionless mask. A flicker of a smile, a frown, a tear, these are not seen as the natural expressions of a child, but as powerful omens for the nation and for the devotees who come to see her. If she smiles or laughs, a typical day in her life is one of ritual and isolation. She is woken early, bathed, and dressed by her attendants, the Kumari-samas, in her magnificent red and gold robes and jewelry. Her iconic fire eye is painted on her forehead. She then performs daily rituals and prayers. For several hours a day, she will sit upon her throne in a specially designated room where devotees, from poor farmers to wealthy businessmen and foreign tourists, will come to receive her darshan, her divine blessing. They will offer her gifts and money, and will bow to touch their foreheads to her sacred feet. She, in turn, remains silent and still, a conduit of divine energy. She is not allowed to have friends or playmates in the conventional sense. Her family may visit her, but they must treat her with the formal reverence due to a goddess, not as their daughter or sister. For centuries, the Kumaris received no formal education, as it was deemed unnecessary for a goddess who was already all-knowing. This created immense problems for them when they inevitably had to return to mortal life. In recent decades, in response to growing criticism from human rights organizations, this has changed. The royal Kumari now receives a private education from tutors who come to the palace. She takes exams and, in a strange fusion of the divine and the mundane, her papers are graded just like any other child's. The Kumari leaves her palace only a handful of times a year for major religious festivals. The most important of these is Indra Jatra, a massive 8-day street festival in Kathmandu. During this time, the Kumari is placed in her great chariot and pulled through the streets, giving her blessing to the city and its people. This is the only time the general public can see their living goddess. For the girl inside the divine costume, it is a rare glimpse of the world she is a part of, yet so completely separated from. Part 4. The Fall of a Goddess. The divinity of the Kumari is inextricably tied to her bodily purity, and this purity is, by its very nature, temporary. The reign of a goddess always ends with a simple biological event: her first menstruation. The moment she begins to bleed, her time as the vessel of Taleju is over. The Gufa, the period of menarche, is the end of an era. The goddess is believed to depart her body as swiftly and silently as she arrived. The news is kept secret for a time, while the council of priests confirms the event and begins the search.
But she is cast back into a normal life that she is utterly unprepared for. She has to learn the most basic life skills. She has to learn how to walk on the street, how to handle money, how to do chores, and how to interact with her peers who have for her entire life viewed her as a divine being. She often struggles with a sense of social awkwardness and a profound identity crisis. Who is she, if not a goddess? This difficult transition is compounded by a powerful and persistent superstition, the curse of the Kumari. It is widely believed in Nepal that any man who marries a former Kumari is doomed to die an early and unnatural death, often by coughing up blood. While there is no statistical evidence to support this curse, its social power is immense. It has made it extremely difficult for many former Kumaris to find husbands and lead a normal family life. The myth may have roots in a very real fear, the fear for a mortal man to be intimate with a body that once housed a powerful and potentially jealous goddess. Or it may simply be a tragic reflection of the immense psychological and social challenges these young women face in readjusting to a world that no longer worships them. In the modern era, the ancient tradition of the Kumari has become the subject of a fierce debate. Human rights activists and child welfare advocates have strongly criticized the practice, arguing that it is a form of child labor and a violation of the girl's fundamental rights. They argue that the isolation, the suppression of emotion, the lack of a normal childhood, and the difficult transition back to mortal life constitute a form of abuse, all in the name of religion. The defenders of the tradition, including the temple authorities, the priests, and the families of the Kumaris themselves, argue that it is a great and sacred honor, not a burden. The Kumari of Nepal remains one of the world's most powerful and paradoxical religious figures. She is at once a child and a god, a prisoner in a gilded cage, and the most revered deity in her nation. Her story forces us to confront our most basic definitions of divinity, childhood, and sacrifice. For a few short, strange years, these chosen girls are the living, breathing heart of their culture's spiritual world, only to be unceremoniously cast back into the mortal realm with nothing but the fading memory of having once been a goddess. It is a beautiful, deeply melancholic, and unforgettable tradition that embodies the very soul of the ancient, sacred, and ever-mysterious city of Kathmandu.